Hi and welcome back to the channel. Today I'll be sharing with you how I made this Milkmaid top. So if it's your first time viewing my channel, please give this video a thumbs up, share and also leave your comment. And if you're a returning subscriber, thank you for always watching my channel. So let's start drafting. Moving over to the pattern paper, I marked out my vertical measurement, which is my shoulder to bust, my shoulder to under bust, my shoulder to waistline, and I added 1 inch to get my top length. After marking that, I went ahead to mark my neckline. I used 3 by 3 inches, which is the standard neckline. Afterwards, I'm going to place my tape from the beginning of my pattern and I'm going to mark my shoulder divided by 2, which gives me 7 inches. So from that mark I made, I'm going to place my tape this way and I'm going to come down by 1 inch. So at that 1 inch mark I made, the next thing I'll do is to place my rule and I'm going to connect drawing my shoulder slant. So after drawing my shoulder slant, the next thing I'm going to do is to get my chest line. So to get your chest line is your bust divided by 6 plus 1.5 inches. So I'm going to place my tape from that point and I'm going to mark 7 inches because that is the measurement for my chest line. At that point also, I'm just going to make sure that I have exactly what I have at my shoulder at this point and I'm going to mark. So from there, I'm going to place my rule and I'll extend the line for my chest line. After drawing out that line, from here I'm going to connect it to my shoulder, forming my armhole area. After doing that, what I'm going to do next is to place my tape and measure what I have from this chest line to the shoulder. So I'm going to find the middle and I'm going to mark. From the middle of that line, I'm going to go in by ½ inch. But before I do that, I'm going to place my bust circumference at my chest line. So the reason why I'm doing this is for my armhole curve not to exceed my bust area. Next step, I'm going to place my French curve and I'm going to draw my armhole curve. So to do that, I'm going to place my French curve touching my shoulder slant down to the ½ inch and down to the chest line. So this is what I have after I'm done. I'll go ahead and I will label that as CL, meaning chest line. So over to the other part of my pattern, I'm going to mark my bust span, which is my nipple to nipple divided by 2. I'm going to mark it at my bust line, at the under bust line, at the waistline. After marking it at the waistline, I'm also going to extend it down to my top length. So I'm going to place my rule and I'm going to connect all the lines that I've made. Sorry, my line might not be visible because I made use of a pencil to make the mark. So after drawing out the line, the next thing is for my dart intake. So for your darts is your shoulder to bust plus 1 inch. So at my bust, I'll place my tape and I'll go down by 1 inch. Then at the top length, I'm going to be marking 1 inch dart intake at both sides. So from that 1 inch dart intake, I'm going to extend it at that 1 inch I came down at my bust at the both sides. So I'm just going to place my rule and I'm going to connect, drawing out my dart. So I'm done drawing out my dart and this is what I have. The next step I'm going to take is to draw my cup. So from my under bust, I'm going to place my tape and I will mark 1 inch. From that 1 inch I marked, I'm going to connect to draw my cup. So I'll go ahead and I will place my French curve this way. So from there, from that dart line, I'm going to connect it down to the 1 inch mark. So going over to my pattern, I'm going to draw the cup for the other side of the dress. So going over to my armhole area. So from this point at my armhole, I'm going to go out by 1/2 inch. And also remember, I placed my bust circumference divided by 4 at my chest line. So whatever I have from this point, I'll be going out by 1/2 inch. So from that 1/2 inch, I'm going to place my tape and I'm going to come down by 1/2 also. Then from that 1/2 inch again, I'm going to draw out a line which will serve as my new chest line. So after extending that line as my new chest line, so this is what I have. So the next step I'm going to do right now is to take my tape. So from where my bust circumference divided by 4 ends, I'm going to place my tape from there and I'm going to mark 2.5 inches upwards. So I'll explain it for clarity's sake. From where my bust circumference divided by 4 stops, I'm going to place my tape and I'm going to mark 2.5 at my armhole curve. So from that 2.5 inches, I will be going in by 0.75. You can as well go in also by 1 inch. So from that 0.75 inch I went in, I'm going to connect it to the new chest line. So this is what I have after connecting, and it's going to stop here at that 2.5 inches, which I measured earlier at the armhole curve. So the next thing I'm going to do is to connect from this point down to my under bust. So I'm going to place my French curve this way and I'm going to draw my cup for that side. So after drawing my cup, this is what I have. So I will still go ahead and I will extend my cup because I'm not comfortable with what I have. So I will still place back my French curve this way and I will adjust my cup or the bra cup area for this pattern. After readjusting it, this is what I have. So the next step I'm going to take from here is to extend my cup upwards. So from my bust point, I'm going to place my tape and I will mark 2 inches. So this 2 inches is optional. You can mark 1.5 or go up more than 2 inches. So from that 2 inches, I'll connect it back to that line at the armhole side. So I'll carefully place my ruler and I'm going to connect that line down to the other side of my cup. So the next thing I'm going to do right now is to place my ruler and I'm going to use my marker to outline all my markings or all the drafting that I have made so far so that my pattern will be very visible for you to see. So please, at this point, if you find this video very interesting and educative, please give this video a thumbs up, share and leave your comment at the comment section. And also don't forget to turn on the notification button to get new updates for my channel whenever I post or upload new videos. So going back to the pattern, the next thing I will do is to insert my body circumference. At my new chest line, I'm going to place and I will mark my bust divided by 4 and I'm going to mark 1.5 inch sewing allowance. Then going down to my under bust, I'm going to mark my under bust circumference divided by 4. After marking that, I'm going to go ahead and I will measure the dart intake I have at my under bust and I'm going to mark also. So note, I won't be cutting that out either, but I just want to replace whatever mark I have. So after that, I'll go ahead and I will add my 1.5 inch sewing allowance. Going down to my waistline, I'm going to insert my waist circumference divided by 4 and I'll measure the dart intake I have and I'm going to replace it. After that, I'll go ahead and add my sewing allowance back, but I'm going to make sure the dart intake I have is exactly what I marked. After doing that, I'll go ahead and I will add my 1.5 inches sewing allowance. Then going down to the top length, whatever I have at my waistline, I'm going to extend it down to the top length. So why I'm doing this is that the waist is not too far away from the top length, so I won't be inserting my hip circumference but my waist circumference. So the next thing I'll do is to connect my lines. So I'll place my ruler and I'm going to connect from my bust to my under bust. After connecting from that point, I'll place it and I will connect it down to my waist line. After connecting it down to my waistline, I'm going to extend it down to my top length. After connecting my line, the next thing I'm going to do is just to take my marker and I'll mark all the lines that I have made so that it will be very visible at this point. So after this, my front pattern is done. So as you can see, it's very simple and easy. So the next thing I'll do is just to cut out my pattern. So here I'm cutting my pattern. But before I do that, I'm going to label the front part of my pattern as CF, that's center front, and the side part as SF, meaning side front. So I'll go ahead and I will cut out my front pattern. After cutting out my front pattern, I will be drafting the back pattern. So stick to the end to see how to draft the back pattern of this dress. And don't forget also to subscribe to my channel if you haven't subscribed at this point, and also give this video a thumbs up. Please give this video a thumbs up, and thank you very much for always watching my video if you're a returning subscriber. So after cutting out my pattern, this is what I have. So moving over to the back pattern of the dress. So first thing, I marked my 1-inch zipper allowance. So going over to my neck, I made a mistake here. So I just used the basic 3 by 3 inches or the standard 3 by 3 inches neckline, which I extended to my zipper allowance. So next, I marked my shoulder to bust, my shoulder to under bust, my shoulder to waist, and then to get my top length, I added 1 inch. So from there, what I'm going to do next is to mark my shoulder. So I'm going to place my tape at from that 1 inch line for my zipper allowance. So I'll place my tape and I'm going to mark my shoulder divided by 2. My shoulder divided by 2 is 7. So I'm going to mark at this point. So from that point, I'm going to go down by 1 inch. From that 1 inch, I'm going to connect it back to my neckline. Next thing I'm going to do from here is to mark my chest line. To get your chest line is your bust divided by 6 plus 1.5 inch. So I'm just going to make a mark there. Then from this point, I'll make sure what I have at my shoulder, which is my shoulder divided by 2, meets that my chest line at that point. So I'm going to place my tape and I'm going to draw a straight line for my armhole. After drawing that line, I'm going to place my ruler the other way and I'm going to extend my chest line. And I'll go ahead and I will write CL, indicating my chest line. At my armhole area, I'm going to divide what I have there into 2 equal parts, so which gives me 3.5 inches. At that 3.5 inches, I'll be going in by ½ inch. From that ½ inch mark I made, I'm going to place my French curve and I'm going to draw my armhole curve. So the next step is to mark my dart intake. At my bust line, I'm going to mark my nipple to nipple divided by 2 and I'm going to mark at this point. Going down to my under bust, I'm going to mark it at that point, and then down to my waistline, I'm going to mark my nipple to nipple divided by 2 and I'll also extend it down to my top length. And I'm going to place my ruler this way and I will connect all the dots or lines that I have made, drawing a straight line. Then I'm going to draw my dart. So for your dart is your shoulder to bust plus 1 inch So I'll place my tape at my bust and I'll make 1 inch mark. From there, I'll go down to my top length and I'm going to mark 1 inch dart at both sides. After doing that, I'm going to extend the line from that bust plus 1 down to my top length. So after marking my dart intake, the next thing is to place my tape and mark my bust circumference divided by 4. After that, from my armhole, I'm going to go in by 1/2 inch. So from that 1/2 inch, I'm going to come down by 1/2 inch also, just like we did for the front pattern. Then I'm going to place my ruler and I'm going to extend my chest line. So this will serve as my new chest line. So coming back to my pattern, from my armhole curve, I'm going to place my tape and I'm going to measure 2.5 inches upwards, just like we did for the front pattern. So after measuring the 2.5 inches, and I'm going to make a mark at that point. So before any other pattern drafting, I'll go ahead and I will place my ruler and I will extend this previous chest line. So after marking that, I'll go back to that 2.5 inches and I'll place my tape and I'm going to mark 0.75 inches inwards. I'll go ahead and I will make a point there. So from that point, I'm going to extend it down to my new chest line, just like the front pattern. After extending it for my new chest line or my new armhole, the next thing I'll do is to extend that line back to my chest line. So at this point, I'm going to make use of my French curve because I want to have a little curve at the back of my dress. So you can also make use of a straight ruler to draw this line. So after drawing it out, this is what I have. So what I'll do next is to take my marker and I'm going to outline all my marks that I have made so that it will be very visible for you to see. So after outlining all my pattern, the next thing I'm going to do is to insert my body circumference. At my bust, I'm going to mark my bust circumference divided by 4 and I'm going to be adding 1.5 inches sewing allowance just like I did for the front. Going over to my under bust, I'm going to insert my under bust circumference divided by 4 and I'm going to measure the dart intake I have at this point and I'm going to place it back at my pattern and I will go ahead and mark. After marking that, I'm going to mark my sewing allowance, which is 1.5 inches. So remember, whatever measurement I'm taking is starting from the zipper allowance. I'll place my tape down at my waistline and I'm going to mark my waist circumference divided by 4. I'll go ahead and measure back the dart intake and I'll place a mark, then mark my 1.5 inch sewing allowance. Moving over to my top length, whatever I have at my waistline, I'm going to extend it down to my top length. Next step is to connect the line from my under bust down to my waistline and my top length. So I'm going to place my ruler this way and I'm going to connect all the lines from my bust or my chest line down to my under bust, down to the waistline and also down to the top length. Afterwards, I'm going to use my marker and I'm going to outline all the marks that I have made so that it's going to be very visible. So after doing that, I'll go down to my chest line and I'll extend it to my zipper allowance. I'll go down to the lower part of my pattern and I'll also outline it. So next is to get rid of puff or that bulginess at the back. So I'll place my tape this way at the down part and I'll mark 1/2 inch. From that 1/2 inch, I'm going to extend it back to the upper part of my pattern and I'm going to draw a line connecting it. After drawing out that line, with this my back pattern is ready and the next thing I'm going to do is just to cut through my pattern. So before also cutting through, I'm just going to extend this line here to the back because I will be cutting my pattern into two. So after cutting my pattern for the back, this is what I have. So I'll go ahead also and I'll cut out the half inch I removed from the zipper allowance to get rid of bulginess at the back of the dress. So here I have it, my front and my back pattern together. So going over to the next step is to cut and spread my cup to get that effect at the bust or the cup area of the dress. So I'm going to place my tape down and I will mark 1.5 inches. I'll keep marking 1.5 inches. After marking the 1.5 inches, I'm going to make or draw a straight line. So here I have it. I'm going to be using this to cut my cup. Sorry, the line might not be very visible because I'm making use of a pencil for this pattern. So just like I said, my line was not showing at this point, so I'm just going to be using some marks or arrow to show you. So what I'm going to do right now is after marking 1.5 inch, I'm going to draw a straight line. So I'll do it for the first one, the second one, and also for the third one. So finally I divided my cup into 4. After doing that, I will be cutting my patterns. But before I do that, I'm going to number it as 1, 2, 3, and I'm going to label the last one as 4. So after labeling it, I'm just going to cut it through into 4 different pieces at those marks that I have made. So after cutting it, I'm going to bring a clean paper and I'm going to divide it into 2 like so. So what I'm going to do right now is to place each pieces and I'm going to make sure that the bust line at that point is touching that center line I made on this paper or this new pattern paper I have. So what I'll do next is to take this paper sellotape and I'm going to tape it down to make sure it doesn't shift. And afterwards, I'll just be adding ½ inch round. I'll add the ½ inch by the side, on top and beneath it. So after taping it, I'm going to place my tape and I'll measure about 2 inches and I'm going to place the second pattern, and I'll also make sure the line at the middle will be touching the line I have on the new pattern paper. So after taping down the second one, the next thing I'm going to do is to get my third pattern. So for my second pattern, I'm going to place my tape this way and I will measure 2 inches and I will make a mark at that point. Then I'll take my third pattern and I will place it and I'm going to tape it down. So after taping down my third pattern, I'll be working on the next pattern, which is the last pattern. So I'm just going to place my tape also and I will measure 2 inches. After measuring 2 inches, I'm going to place my fourth or my last pattern and I'm going to tape down. And I'll also make sure that line is outlining with this other pattern. After I'm done taping it, I'm just going to add ½ inch round my pattern. So I'll place my tape like so and I'm going to mark ½ inch. So at this point, I would like you to pay attention to see how I'm going to add ½ inch to my pattern so that you won't be confused at the end. So after adding ½ inch round to my pattern, I'll go ahead and I will cut it out. So after cutting it out, this will be my new pattern for the cup area. So next, going over to my sleeve. So for the sleeve of this dress, there are two ways of cutting it. The first one is after drafting on your pattern paper, you're going to spread it just like the way we did for the cup, and you're going to transfer the spread pattern on your main fabric. Then the next one is you're going to cut out your original measurement, and you're just going to add 5 inches extra to make your sleeve bigger than your normal sleeve. Afterwards, by the time you're done attaching elastic casing on your fabric, it's going to give you the look that you desire for your sleeve. So after doing that, I'm just going to place my tape and I'm going to calculate my sleeve cap's height. So to get that is your bust circumference divided by 12 plus 0.5 inches. So after doing that, I'll place my tape and I'm going to mark my sleeve cap height. After marking that, I'm going to place my tape and I'm going to mark the measurement I have round my armhole divided by 2 plus 1 inch allowance. So from here, I'm just going to connect it down to my sleeve. So I'm just going to mark it so that it will be very visible for you to see. So next, what I'm going to do is to place my French curve and I'll just draw out my armhole curve at that point. I'm making use of a freehand sketch, so you can also calculate this if you want to. So to know how to calculate this, I have a video on how to cut a sleeve, so you can go check it out on my channel also. After drawing it out, I'm just going to use my chalk to blend it out very well, and so that you can see it, because I'm drafting it directly on my fabric. So for the length of my sleeve, I added extra 5 inches for my sleeve length to avoid having shortage at the end. So the actual length of my sleeve is 28 and I added 5 inches extra to avoid having shortage at the end. So after this, I'm just going to cut out my pattern. So after cutting out the pattern, my sleeve pattern is ready. So I'll be sewing or joining my material in my next tutorial. So please join me in my next tutorial, and don't forget to like, share and subscribe to my YouTube channel, and also turn on the notification button. Thank you.